Welcome, I'm Jellybeans, and Steam has just kicked off the autumn sales for 2024. As this is a primarily Steam Deck channel, I've picked out the top picks from my recommendations that are under $10 that are all playable on the deck and you can work right out of the box and you can jump straight into these games. If you're new to the channel, please note at the left bottom corner will be the ProtonDB score for each game. That indicates the Linux compatibility and the Steam Deck verified status. But even if a game is unsupported, it can still work on the Steam Deck, and all of the titles listed here will definitely do so. Now with that out of the way, let's get straight into it. The first pick on the list is Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, which is a game that's quite near and dear to me. I've played it through a number of times. It's essentially a GTA clone, but it has a focus on hand-to-hand combat and is set in Hong Kong. We're currently seeing a discount of 85%, which is not the lowest that the game has ever been on sale for. However, for $2.99 US, what you're getting is just a really fun game to play. Sleeping Dogs is quite simple. The story is only going to range you about 6 to 10 hours. There is some side content that you can do as well, but you're playing this for the story. It uses celebrity voice actors for many of the characters, and you'll find yourself as Wei Shen, an undercover cop who's wrapped up as a double agent in the middle of a gang war. In terms of gameplay, as I said, it is a GTA clone, so you can expect an open world with side missions sprinkled throughout, and then the main story content, while borrowing heavily from the Arkham style of combat with Y to counter or X to punch. And it's not until much later in the game where it shifts to gunplay, which isn't actually all that bad because the combat is done so well, and you've got the environmental interactions that you can do, where you can grab a thug and if they're close to a wall, slam them into it. If it's a window, they're going straight through. You can do all of these fun, stylized insta-kills, which keeps the combat engaging throughout the story runtime. Next up, we have the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. Now, these games were originally released on the Game Boy in Japan and then on the Nintendo DS overseas, so you're not going to have to worry about any technical issues or power draw on this one. You can simply set the deck to 3 watt TDP and call it a day, but you're going to be playing this for hours. Coming in at 85% off, if you're not into visual novel type games, then this may not interest you, but what I've always loved about the Phoenix Wright series is how they tie the evidence collection and then the court scene drama together to make it seem like you're really solving the case, and as you go, you're uncovering more details and evidence and find out what actually happened on this case. How was the murder committed? Or is the defendant being framed for something that they didn't do? The great part is that if you enjoy the trilogy, there's plenty of other games in this series that following different characters and storylines and different cases. So there's plenty to indulge in. You might as well give it a try. Batman Arkham Knight. What a mess this game was at launch. When it came out on PC, this was a complete disaster. It did not run, it was crashing frequently. But goddamn, the game does still look amazing, and even today on the Steam Deck, it runs perfectly well after all of the fixes and work they had to go through to get this game up and running. It's currently at 80% off, and Arkham Knight is the third game in the Batman Trilogy series, so it is recommended that you have played the other two games, although it's not required. This one mixes things up by taking the open world and then having the shift to the Batmobile. Now, that does appear a little bit too much in some sections. They overuse it because of how cool the tech was at the time. But in terms of the gameplay, the mix of different content, and then the Batmobile and all of the offerings that are on display here, it is a really exceptional game, and it looks absolutely amazing even almost 10 years later from release. As I mentioned on Sleeping Dogs, it uses the same combat style where you can counter enemies, and there's really fluid movement of Batman as he goes around from thug to thug, but it also has stealth gameplay where you can take out everyone in an area without being spotted, but if you do, you can then resort to that great fun punch and beat 'em up style as well. Which is always the best part of a stealth game, is making sure that there are consequences if you are found, but that you have alternative methods and gadgets up your sleeve so that you can get away, and or just resort to fist punching if you have to. It's a real shame that Rocksteady aren't making single player experiences like this one anymore, and I'll take more games like this over the Suicide Squad live service disaster any day. Though I have heard the new Batman VR game is quite good, but unfortunately it's tied to the latest Meta headset, which I just don't have currently. Darkest Dungeon, a turn-based RPG roguelike with character permadeath and a lot of dying. For this one, there's a meta progression as you'll be going through dungeons and fighting the various monsters and creatures within. You'll have to try and keep the sanity of your party while you crawl through each room looking for loot and completing the quest's objectives. There's also a sequel game now, but it does mix up the gameplay formula quite a bit, so if you enjoy this one, you can always move on to that after the fact as well. On the Steam Deck, it's going to run beautifully because it's just paper stills of characters with backgrounds behind them, so the Steam Deck just does not struggle running this one at all. Now, it is difficult and challenging. The game is not easy. There is permadeath on your characters. If they die, they are gone. You then need to level up a new character and get all of the gear and stats that you had for them, which can be a bit grueling. They do implement meta progression, which helps you get there faster, but be aware if you don't like challenging setbacks, then perhaps Darkest Dungeon isn't for you. But for $2, it's oozing with style, easy to pick up and play, and just hope you don't lose your sanity along the way. Now we have Killing Floor 2, a horde zombie co-op single player Zed slaughtering mayhem at 95% off for $1.50. Please, if you have not played Killing Floor, give it a try. If you don't like other horde zombie type games, this one might pique your interest. It does a lot of things that really make the gameplay fun and different. They have a lot of different special types that keep things mixed up. The maps and music are fantastic, and it just brings me back to the memories of playing through the Christmas or Halloween carnival levels and then having that iconic music to just go along while shooting the Zeds in the background. What Killing Floor does really well is the class-based system and level progression. You can play the different classes that might specialize in sharpshooting or melee-based combat, and what keeps you playing is that you can unlock perks and different abilities within those characters that just make you feel stronger and stronger throughout all the matches that you play. If you've ever tried Call of Duty Zombies or Left 4 Dead, you owe it to yourself to at least try this one out, and for $1.50 you can't go wrong. If you're enjoying the video so far, please consider hitting the subscribe or at least the like button. It really helps the channel, and videos like this take a lot of time and effort. Moving on, we have Undertale. If you haven't played this already, just go buy it. It's the lowest price it's ever been at 75% off. Just go play it. I don't want to spoil it. It is an RPG, it's turn-based, but it also has a lot of nuance to the gameplay, and it sort of becomes a rhythm game with other minigames mixed in. I don't want to say much more about it other than the story is fantastic. It doesn't look like much, it's only made by a single developer, but once you play and you're engaged with the characters and what's happening, it's just, there's no experience like Undertale. If you haven't played it, go get it right now and then come back. Hotline Miami. This little indie gem puts you top down in a twin stick shoot 'em up where one hit is one kill. It's very fast paced. You will die a lot. You will have to strategize and think about how you're going to be entering the rooms and taking out all of the thugs without dying, but that's the fun of it, the replay value, and it's just really easy to pick up and play through the missions because they're all bite-sized and relatively quick. What you'll be doing is you just need to get to the end. Just kill everyone, do not die, and then they have the masks and things which mix up the gameplay as well. It's a really simple one but really enjoyable, and it's at 80% off. Also has a sequel which I believe is on sale as well, so if you don't have enough content here, you can always jump to the second game to keep the action going. This is another easy recommendation, and you can see straight from the trailer and gameplay if it's going to be for you. Check it out. The remake of Doom showed why the old classics and FPSs of back in the day, and how you can craft levels and keep your character movement fluid and fast and just have a joy of fun. This game, you'll be killing demons from hell and just shooting and killing absolutely everything on screen. What really stuck with me on this one is I remember playing through some of the first levels, and your character, instead of listening to all of the dialogue from the characters and all of their exposition, simply just smashes the monitor and just gets right to the action. That is what we need more in games. Remove the fluff, just have the fun and action. And yes, you could say that, oh, it's just repetitive, you're just killing things over and over again, but that's where the level design comes in. You've got the things to collect, the power-ups to get, the guns, and all of the different weapons that you'll be using along the way that just really mix it up and keep it fun and engaging. For 80% off, this runs perfectly on the Steam Deck. It is superbly optimized. it's going to stick to 40 FPS or 60 with no issues at all. Over the years, they've also packed it with more content and more modes to play, like arcade, the photo mode, and then the DLC packs too. And if that wasn't enough, you can just go to the sequel game as well. Next up, we have Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition, putting you into the medieval landscape with realistic combat. You'll be traveling through an open world, completing quests, navigating through the story until you become a complete badass, all the way from working on a farmland to conquering armies. Somehow the developers even managed to port this to the Switch so that you know on the Steam Deck with low settings you're getting around 45 to 60 FPS. If you want another medieval game similar to Mount and Blade Warband, Kingdom Come has you covered, and it has a sequel releasing soon, so you might want to play the first one before it comes out. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I'm including this one here because on the Epic Game Store it's actually free right now, and you can play Epic Games through using the Legion software or just install the game as a non-Steam game and add it in that way. If you've played any of the LEGO games, this is an extension of that same formula but taking it open world and open space, where you can travel between the planets and complete all of the missions. Of course, it also has split screen and it works fine on the deck, which is great to see. I just wish more games would include split screen options. It just seems to be dying out these days, but I played this through with my partner and we had a great time. She loved it. If you have kids too that you'd like to play a co-op experience with, this is also really fun. It's enjoyable for adults and children alike, and the themes and content there aren't going to be any issues with children. If you did want to pick this one on Steam, it's 80% off, but as I mentioned, it is currently free through Epic. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's the 3 Mass Effect games all bundled into one with all of the DLC and packs that came along with them. It's sitting at 92% off. For this price and the amount of content that you're getting, it's essentially unmatched. You're getting 3 games at $5. So if there's anything on this list that you want to keep you going for a long period of time, it's this one. It's BioWare, it's an RPG, you'll be interacting with the campaign, your companions, the side content. You'll be shooting from a third-person perspective to mix up the gameplay from turn-based or anything like that. But what else is there to be said about Mass Effect these days? It's been around for quite a while. They're still releasing sequels to this day. It's a beloved series. The third game did have a bit of controversy around the ending and some of the DLC content, but nowadays getting all 3 of them together, you can take your character throughout the story from the very first game to the third one. It's just a great experience overall. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy at 85% off. This is a single player experience, which is really good to see these days, as just not enough projects like this are getting funded. And I've heard it's really good. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to play it just yet, but it brings the characters we all know very well now from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and plays in them a little bit differently, but you're going to go through a campaign, single player focused experience that runs really well on the deck between 45 FPS, has tight gameplay, and I've only ever heard good things from this game, with a 92% mostly enjoyed on Steam. Maybe you should have a look at this one. Another title that I haven't had the chance or pleasure to play yet is Subnautica. It's sitting at 67% off, and it takes the crafting formula but puts it underwater. You'll be going from scuba diving all the way to submarines in this beloved game at this point. People absolutely love this thing. The amount of content that it's received over the years as well has just kept things going and going and going. If you're into that core gameplay loop of crafting and then progressing further and further and further as you go, while exploring more things and uncovering what's under the depths, then Subnautica is a great place to look. I've also heard no issues of the performance on the Steam Deck, and remember it being in lots of promotional material from Valve when they first released as well. Now, I did want to include many games from my previous list here, as I'll include the video at the end for my other Steam picks from the previous sales. There's a lot of good recommendations there, but the one I did want to mention, just because of how good the sale was and how much fun I had with it, was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Yes, you're stuck with Uplay and all of the Ubisoft bullshit, but for 90% off, it's really fun. I don't understand why this game receives so much flack. The story is alright, but it puts a lot more emphasis on just being within Greece, and I really enjoyed the side story content. These side missions were some of the most fun that I had with the game. I didn't really care for the story, but I just went around completing the areas, doing all the quests that were around there, which made the action RPG and progression system, which although isn't really Assassin's Creed as I know it, a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Not as an Assassin's Creed game, but as an action RPG where I can just go through the waters and cities of Greece and just have so much fun. So those are my recommendations for games under $10 within the autumn Steam sales of 2024. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe, like, or comment. It helps the channel tremendously, and I really enjoy making content like this, so please let me know, and also provide comments on any games that I've missed or you think people should pick up in the sales, because I can't capture everything. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.